What's up everyone, here we are once again for another trial video, this time on Stormblood. This one's interesting for me because I am one of the few people who like Stormblood for what it had to offer in terms of story, gameplay, and extra content. The trials are usually one of the best parts of Final Fantasy XIV, so I look forward to ranking these with you guys. So, we will be dividing this into 3 different parts into this expansion: story, extra quests, or crossover events. Each one of these brings in a new type of way of how they are handling the trials, and we'll be talking about these very soon. Remember, these are my opinions on which trials are my favorites from the most to the least. If you have any that you liked more than I did, then feel free to comment them down below in the comments. With that being said, let us begin with the trials. Starting at the bottom of the list of number 9 comes in Gilgamesh. Sorry Greg, but you are the last one on this list. Gilgamesh is a fun fight. I would say all of these trials are fun in their own way. The only downside I would say is having to list them in the first place. We have already fought Greg in the past, but this version of him is built up more. The same goes for the Manderville story. He wants his revenge, and he feels more powerful now. I would even say, in my opinion, the story of Manderville with him is a little more interesting this time. He got new mechanics that we have handled before, but they seem to be improved versions of his last. To be honest, I do think we will see him again in the future. I only hope at that point I don't grow tired of him. I know there is another Hildebrand trial in Endwalker, but I think this time is actually with a different character and not Greg. Coming in at number 8 is Siryu. This may be just me, but I think this fight just didn't grab me like the other 2 lords. There wasn't much for me to bite into and enjoy. The story is definitely great, but that is just our man Soken putting in the work as usual. The fight has you fighting him for a bit, but then he throws in some ads here and there for you to handle. Then it goes right back into fighting him once more, while also handling the usual mechanics of these fights that we've seen before, and maybe a couple of them within the dungeons that we previously done. I do say Stormblood seems to love throwing in their ads in their trials. I don't know what it is that they decided to do this time, but it's very interesting that Stormblood decided to add in a bunch of, ads. But I will say it isn't an issue for me, but more like an alright, sure kind of thing. I do like these fights a little bit more than Gilgamesh, but I will have to say it's only a little bit more. That has to do with the story and why I enjoy it so much. I was expecting more due to him being the last of the lords based off the story that we faced up against, and the story of these characters were excellent. I always looked forward to doing them, especially when it was all about him wanting to become stronger to defeat Tenzin in battle after having mercy and being saved by him. He felt very emotional about what happened with Tenzin. He felt that he could take the same motivation and put it into you. Nonetheless, it just was one that didn't grab me, which is okay, because we will still have several more to cover. Coming in at number 7 is the Rathalos. Now, I may have botched how to pronounce that because I've never actually played Monster Hunter before. I don't think it's a big thing, but I don't think this small event will convince me just yet to jump into Monster Hunter. Although, I will say it is definitely an exciting fight. Besides having that weird bong noise popping up in my head from time to time, the mechs are much more mixed up here. I'm unsure if this is close to what fighting with monsters in Monster Hunter is like, but I am sure this is new in the game. I don't mean that the combat is the same, of course not. What I mean is targeting a different part of the enemy and knocking them down in a way of staggering them, making the Rathalos open for attacks. You can target the head or the tail, but taking out the tail makes it easier. Although I will say it is only after taking its life down to a certain point. It isn't completely open to the point, but you get what I'm saying. As I mentioned before, there are ads and a hiding spot for a big attack that you will be shooting to see and that you will have to be able to hide behind. The only way to heal is also by potions once the fire is engulfed within the ground. It's different, but I enjoy how they switched up the mechanics for this trial itself. It's a little different than your usual fights, maybe a little frustrating for some people, especially the healers, but it's not that bad. There wasn't much story or anything, but a few cutscenes, maybe very rewarding for those who are more familiar with Monster Hunter, because I see there's a couple of references here and there. But for me, it was just overall a nice fight with a couple of change of mechanics, and I will like that. Coming at number 6 is Susanoo. Do you remember the fight with Ravana? Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if the two of them fought together or maybe against one another? I don't know, maybe that's just my crazy fan theories just going out of whack. Someday, but I don't think so. Anyways, Susanoo is number 6. This guy is just like Ravana. They both enjoy the feeling of battle with anyone who is up for it. By the way, am I the only one who always says, "Our hearts sing in the chaos"? Something that I picked up whenever I fight some of these bosses on Extreme. Every single time you just pick up a few lines and then it just be stuck in your head. I can see this fight going forward to a totally another level if there was an Unreal version. Now, I can see this fight also going towards another level because there's a couple of mechanics here that I tend to really like that they haven't necessarily brought back yet. And that has to do with the Q2Es. Now, I know the QTEs in Final Fantasy XIV sounds a little different, and also it has been showing up throughout the game. But there's one necessary QTE that I haven't seen make a return in some type of sense, and that is with him with his giant sword during the second phase. I love this part. I love it, and I love it whenever someone who's not a tank that ends up doing it. Check out the version with the book. Now, this is the first time ever an active time mechanic is being introduced to you, which was a shock for me when I got here to this point. I was like, wait, QTEs in Final Fantasy XIV? That's different. Funny enough, no ads in this fight. At this point of the story, Lise and Alize are with me to have the 3 sacred treasures unite and become our primal to kill within the Kojin home. This is because of the Garlean Empire that was invading and causing too much problem for our turtle friends and the Red Sea. But we were here to try to take down, of course, their primal and win the hearts of our fellow people within the Red Sea. Coming in at number 5 is Lakshmi, if I pronounce that correctly. May your souls rest in my bosom. Yes, that's one that I just cannot help myself remember hearing all the time whenever I'm doing the extreme version. What some may call is Mommy, this one may be higher up than others due to its popularity. No, I don't mean the memes and the, I enjoy this one for its music and the shake-up for having your party think about where they are and what they're doing. Bringing in ads and starting to do the exact same thing is making sure you take out the ads in the beginning. Then she comes out to show her love to the party. Make sure to use your bubbles unless you are one of those weirdos who enjoys getting dominated, aka death. While she puts up a good fight, she pulls our souls into her chest whenever we are, of course, enticed by her love. The story is reaching its climax at this point. Bordola goes nuts and cuts down one of the Kilea? It's the snake ladies. You know what I'm talking about. Then they summon their beautiful goddess, saying that she will fulfill their promise and bring them back to life. Although we all know that this is BS, so time to kill. With Ali and Rage, she wanted to take them down, but you know, your boy just had to step in and do it myself due to the fact that our Scions could not handle primals. Coming at number 4 is Byakko. Speaking of Rage, this boss design is fantastic. A tiger man with a tiger arm that summons out a tiger who is full of rage. I really like this fight. It's very interesting and they have so many very anime moments, especially when you're falling from the sky. It isn't too much, but it's a good thing to start out with for the lords. I think it has a great amount of energy to it and it keeps me going. This fight is the first out of the 3 and it doesn't have ads, but it does have 2 unique grabs, or should I say 2 unique stacks. That's when, of course, the trial boss comes and he picks up a target and slams them onto the other side of the arena, which is forcing our party to be able to stack. A few AoEs and free falling section to transition into the next phase, and the music just happens to go ham. I just really enjoyed this fight. There isn't too much, but I just like it, and that's not too bad. But I will have to say, the next lord is definitely my favorite lord. Coming in number 3 is Suzaku. A Trial of Love is what I got from this one. Either way, I like this one because it has a great track and the transformation is great. Plus, I have a little biasness for Phoenixes. Going for the normal lord's first phase track to a full-on lyrical jam was a great choice by Soken. The music alone is very moving for me. The transition from a normal battle with the adds to a DDR phase to a full-on fight with the floor can explode on you based off the order of the bird outside of the arena. I don't know. It sounded like a whole lot and it sounded crazy, but it was such a great fight. This is a great fight to keep you on your toes, but also feel the emotion that Suzaku has for Tenzin. You can hear it within her voice whenever she says any of her voice lines.
Trust in me, my love. I will protect you, I promise. Please, my love, if only you would listen.
She displays a lot of emotion through her VA alone, and some of the battle is just happening before us. And you can tell how much love she has for Tenzin based off of the story that she tells you afterwards. The story of Tenzin and Suzaku is an interesting one, because each of the lords respected him differently. Suzaku loved Tenzin for more than anyone else because of all the things that he's done, and she takes the liking of a firebird or a phoenix. Although she does take the form of the firebird, she lacks the ability of one and feels hopeless when she watches Tenzin die before her hands, and that is probably her breaking point. She didn't believe anyone could take his place, and that you are not someone who can. Testing your might against her and seeing if you are worthy. Afterwards, seeing that she can protect those Tenzin loved as she had for him. It was a great turning point for her in the story of Tenzin himself. You can tell this is one of my favorites in Stormblood. The story of the 4 lords was a great one to learn, but we still have some Stormblood trials and stories left to talk about. Coming in at number 2, Shinryu, or maybe I should say Xenos? This one may end up being a shock to most people, but I enjoyed the Shinryu fight. It is supposed to be Xenos merging with him. It's after the fight with Omega and Papalymo that Xenos has acquired Shinryu. There were a good amount of reasons for this fight. This was for all of Migo, Kugane, and Eorzea. The Empire was a problem for many people, and Xenos was a good source of these problems. As the crazy son of the Empire, the battle of the Emperor was rising, and it took so much to take it down. This fight is a little more straightforward than the last, but it is more of a scope and meaning that drove it up for me. This fight alone has ads. Well, of course, why would it not? And another active time maneuver as well. After the phase change, we have a battleground that can be broken down by Shinryu's choice with his tail, but of course we have to be able to take out the tail in order for us to be able to progress. And it gets in the way, especially when it starts breaking down our platforms. The extreme battle gives us a whole new battleground that is focused on the team coordination and timing. AoEs are practically everywhere and could potentially wipe out the party. This is the end of the main story of Stormblood, but not the complete end of Stormblood. Just mostly the first half of the expansion, because we got one other problem that needs to be handled next. That is right, the last and the final and my top favorite trial in Stormblood is of course Tsukiyomi. I have to say this, Stormblood hasn't been a great expansion for me, but I love a few things that came in from it. There's some trials that I enjoyed so much that were far better than what they did in Heaven's Ward, and of course there were some characters that seems to grab my attention far more than the others did, and this one is one of them. The character Yatsuyu is a very intriguing one. You hate her, but at the same time, you like her. In my opinion, Final Fantasy XIV's villains hasn't been catching my attention. Xenos was very interesting, but he hasn't really necessarily caught my attention as much. Not yet. There wasn't enough there to get me. Gosetsu was a good man who wanted to look after Yatsuyu. She lost her memory after everything that happened in Stormblood. When it came to saving Doma, him and Tsuyu stayed behind and were caught under the rubble. She became a good woman who wanted to do good things for Gosetsu, until her brother, Asahi, came and pretended to be a help, but only to make things worse for everyone, all for his love for Xenos. Alright now, for the fight itself. This one has a lot to it as well. The music itself is another one of my favorites. Literally all three different phases and a beautiful song with it. The second phase is a memorable one. It's a soft theme that plays along a moment where we are experiencing a sad moment with Yatsuyu, and everyone terrible too. It shows her abuse and all of every single tragic thing that happened with her parents, her brother, the Empire, people who live in Doma, and of course, Xenos as well. The only one who cared for her was of course Gosetsu. Coming in for the save, we have to defend her while he comes to save her. But it was good, but not enough. As the music builds up, it reaches the third phase, The Wayward Daughter. It's an amazing song, and I would like to think it's actually her and Gosetsu singing it together in my headcanon. Just what I feel is happening within the song. In this phase, she speaks more ways and attacks more aggressively. You have to manage what side of the yin-yang you have with the phases of the moon, and of course, in the extreme version, there are meteorites you have to watch out for and make sure they're landed at the right spot so that everyone can be able to switch over their colors just in time. The beautiful scenery all around us, while she is unleashing so much of her attacks upon us. And of course, like I said, the extreme version, the story seems to stand out so much more for me because there's so much more you have to handle, and you can feel the struggle that she had within the fight. I had a lot to say about this fight, but that is only because there is so much that I love about it. I could go on about this one for a while, but we will be here all day. This was a fun one to come up with. Stormblood definitely stepped up his game with its trials, and I'm excited to jump into Shadowbringers next. I know you guys may have your favorites, so feel free to let me know what you like most and what you like the least in the comments down below. And if you like this video, then let me know with a like or hit me up on the comments as well. But with that being said, stay optimistic everyone, keep it real, and I shall see you all in the next one. Take care.